The moment the judge's gavel struck wood, I knew I had no home left in the city that had raised me. I didn't flinch at the sound. I didn't look at Jenna. I didn't even breathe, just waited, frozen. As the air in the courtroom thinned, the walls closing in with polite applause from the other side's legal team. Full emergency custody awarded to Mr. Raine pending further review. Those words should have brought relief, but they tasted like ash. My mother didn't stand. She didn't protest. She just sat there, legs crossed, her pearl earrings glinting beneath the courtroom lights like little blades. Next to her, Jenna's carefully sculpted face never cracked. But I saw it in her eyes. Something coiled, venomous, waiting for its moment. This wasn't over. By the time we reached the private terminal at Logan, the sun had dipped behind the Boston skyline, smearing the clouds with blood-red streaks. I stepped out of the black SUV into wind that tasted like coming rain. The jet sat gleaming under floodlights, silent, ready. My pilot, Captain Holt, waited on the tarmac, clipboard in hand. He'd flown for Raintech for 11 years and never once asked questions. That's why I trusted him. Behind me, the car door burst open. "Dad, it has a tail fin," Alara shouted, racing toward the stairs like the jet was a spaceship. She was 10, brilliant, and completely unbothered by the fact that her life had just been uprooted without warning. Her older brother, Jace, 12 and already burdened with the caution of someone twice his age, pulled his hoodie tighter and followed at a slower pace. Elias, the youngest, hopped out last, dragging his tiny backpack and cradling his stuffed fox. His lip quivered until Alara circled back and grabbed his hand. I watched her tuck the little animal under his arm and whisper something I couldn't hear. The tears didn't come. She'd be dangerous someday, that one. I crouched next to Jace. "You see the men stationed around the perimeter?" I asked, nodding discreetly toward the additional security Ryan had arranged. He gave a small nod. "They're watching the cars. And the terminal doors." "Why?" He hesitated. Then, "Because we're not just going on vacation." "Smart, my son." I stood and smoothed down his wind-blown hair. "You remember what I told you about timing in business? Always verify the data before you move." "Exactly. Sometimes the safest route is the one no one expects you to take." He said nothing, but I saw the flicker of understanding in his eyes. As we boarded, my earpiece clicked. Ryan's voice came through, calm, clipped. "Jenna and your mother just sat down to dinner at Bellwright's." Garcia's tapped their phones. "No movement yet." "Understood," I replied. "Denver teams in position. Security systems are live. Tony's flight is wheels up in 20. "Good." The cabin was immaculate, cream leather seats, polished wood, warm lighting. Alara darted to a window, nose pressed against the glass. Elias clambered onto a seat and immediately opened his coloring book, as if drawing foxes could ward off uncertainty. Jace settled in last, pulled up a schematic of the Denver robotics lab on his tablet. His shoulders finally relaxed. I stowed the carry-ons and glanced down the aisle. "Alara," I called. "Come here." She skipped over, still bubbling with questions. "Is this about the new Raintech building? The one with the glass bridge and vertical garden?" "Sort of." She frowned, catching something in my tone. "Why is there extra security? Did something happen?" I crouched to her level again. "Sometimes, sweetheart, protecting people means doing hard things, even if they don't understand right away." Her gaze didn't waver. "Like when you moved my trust out of Mom's reach without telling her?" I blinked. "How did you?" "You used a Cayman subtrust and changed the custodian last week. I read the docket on your desk." Pride flared in my chest. "Exactly like that." Captain Holt's voice crackled through the intercom. "Mr. Raine, we're cleared for departure. Smooth air to Denver." As the jet lifted into the darkening sky, I glanced at my children. Alara was narrating our ascent to Elias, who watched clouds with wide eyes. Jace had leaned back, his screen now full of code. This wasn't the life I'd wanted for them, but it was the only way to keep them safe. Back in Boston, in the velvet glow of the Metropolitan Club, Jenna sipped her wine and checked her phone. A text from her lawyer. Mason. Read. Everything set with Judge Coyle. Emergency orders ready when we pull the trigger. She typed back with a smirk. My mother handled the rest. Byron has no idea what's coming. Stella Raine, my mother, lifted her glass. To family, the way it should be. Neither noticed the waiter, a SharpTech plant, capturing every word and facial tic with a camera embedded in his cufflink. At 39,000 feet, my phone vibrated. A voicemail. From Jenna. You think you can just take them? My lawyer's already working on the order. Your precious company won't save you. Not this time. I stared at the screen. Alara was asleep against my shoulder. Elias had drifted off, clutching his fox. Jace sat across from me, watching the lights blink across the instrument panel. Is Mom mad about our surprise trip? He asked quietly. She's mad about a lot of things, I answered. But being mad doesn't make her right. The jet began its descent toward Denver. By the time we reached the estate, night had fully claimed the mountains. The house rose like a fortress, discreet but secure. The Denver team, hired through shell firms and personally vetted by Ryan, moved with silent efficiency. Surveillance drones circled high above. Inside, Alara collapsed on her bed after a whirlwind tour. Elias was asleep before his nightlight finished glowing. Jace stayed up just long enough to confirm his server tower had survived the trip. I stood at the study window watching the last security sweep. My phone buzzed. Another message from Jenna. Mason's with the board. You're finished. She didn't know Judge Coyle had recused himself that morning. Didn't know Tony had compiled a dossier proving Stella's influence had extended to rulings far beyond family court. Didn't know Gabriella Patton had secured a shareholder majority behind my back, cutting Mason off before he could mount a case. Didn't know she was already losing. But then came the final blow. Message. Mom's in ICU. Massive stroke. She's asking for the kids. Please. This may be her last chance. Seconds later, Tony's message came through. Confirmed. Real stroke. Denver General. But Jenna and Mason are there. Lawyers too. Cops in the hallway. It's a trap. I turned. Emma, my Alara, stood in the doorway, arms crossed. Is Grandma dying? She asked. I didn't answer right away, just gestured for her to sit. Then called out, Jace, Elias, come in here, please. They came, tired but alert. Elias rubbing his eyes. I turned the monitor toward them. Security feed from Denver General. There's your grandmother. Yes, she's ill. But look at this. I pointed. That's your mother. And Mason. And their lawyer. Now tell me. Does this feel like a visit to say goodbye? Or something else? Jace leaned in. There are officers by the room. Alara squinted. Mom's not even looking at Grandma. She's on the phone. Planning something. They want you to come, I said. So they can force a scene. And take you. Elias clutched his fox tighter. But, what if Grandma really needs us? I sighed. Then we'll see her. But on our terms. The next morning, I arranged a secure video call. Denver Family Services monitored the session. Our new therapist, Dr. Olson, was present. The hospital couldn't object. The screen flickered to life. Stella looked pale, weak, but her eyes still glinted. My darlings, she whispered. I'm so glad you're here. Your father's being cruel. He's keeping you from your family. Alara straightened. We saw the video, Grandma, of you helping Mom lie in court, and Mason's emails about stealing from Raintech. The silence that followed was the sweetest sound I'd heard in weeks. And we were just getting started. Some nights, the mountains feel like armor. They rise around you like guardians, cold and absolute, swallowing up the noise of the world below. But on this night, as I stood on the balcony of our new estate, wrapped in a black coat and silence, I realized something unsettling. Armor can become a cage. It had been 5 days since the emergency extraction. 5 days since I pulled my children out of Boston, out of danger, out of a home that had turned into a battleground dressed in designer wallpaper. I told myself I was doing the right thing. Told myself I was giving them safety, clarity, peace. But peace was a language none of us had spoken in years. At 6:47 a.m., I found Jace in the tech wing. Not room, wing. The boy had commandeered the south corner of the estate and turned it into a functioning lab in less than 72 hours. Multiple screens glowed across the wall. A live security feed of the perimeter. Drone patrol telemetry. Internal comm lines. One feed showed Stella in her hospital room, recovering in staged comfort. Another showed Jenna pacing her condo in Back Bay, glass of wine in hand, rage barely contained behind her perfectly composed face. "She's running out of moves," Jace muttered without turning around. "She doesn't see it yet," I replied, stepping in. "People like your mother don't fold. They implode." "Is that why you never yell?" That caught me off guard. "What?" "You never raise your voice. Not when you're angry. Not when you're cornered." "I've learned yelling makes people listen to the volume, not the message." Jace looked at me then, not like a boy looking at his father, like a strategist sizing up a fellow tactician. "She's going to try something soon. She already has." Later that morning, a package arrived. No return address. Hand-delivered. One of our guards brought it into the study, his posture rigid. It passed screening. No explosives, no bugs. Just this. I took it. Cold. Heavy. Inside, a leather-bound photo album. Gold trim. The kind my mother used to assemble with manicured fingers and perfect captions. The first page held a picture of Jenna and me on our wedding day. She was laughing. I looked like a man who thought he'd won something. The caption, "Before the lies." The next page, Jenna cradling Alara, just hours old. I was in the background, bleary-eyed but beaming. Caption, "Before he chose work over family." I flipped faster now. Each page a knife. Alara's 3rd birthday. I wasn't in the photo. Just Jenna and Stella. Jace's robotics competition, he'd won regionals. I was giving a keynote in Singapore that day. Elias in the NICU, tubes everywhere. Jenna asleep in a chair. I was across the glass, phone in hand. Caption, "He was always somewhere else." The last page was blank, but taped to it, a USB drive. I stared at it for a long time. Then I crushed the album closed and threw it into the fireplace. The flames took it greedily, the gold trim curling like dead leaves. I didn't even glance at the USB. Not yet. That evening, after dinner, Alara found me in the library. She curled up in the oversized chair across from mine, hugging a worn novel, Ender's Game, her newest obsession. "You loved Mom once," she said. It wasn't a question. "Yes." "And Grandma?" "Complicated." Alara closed her book without losing her page. "Do you think they loved us? Or did they just love what we gave them?" I blinked. She was 10. But that question didn't belong to a child. "I think they loved control," I answered carefully. "And when people love control more than they love people, they stop seeing the difference." She was quiet for a long time. "I don't think I want to go back." "You won't," I said. "Not while I'm breathing." That night, I finally plugged in the USB. Encrypted, of course. Not well. It was designed for me to break. Inside, video files. One after another. The footage was damning. Meetings between Jenna and Mason planning the custody ambush 6 months in advance. Surveillance clips of Stella coaching witnesses. Emails between Judge Coyle and my mother dripping with collusion. And a final video. Jenna alone, staring directly into the camera. "I know you're watching this, Callum. And if you are, that means you've decided not to come back. Not to fix this. Not to be what I begged you to be." She leaned closer. Her expression softened, dangerously so. "I could ruin you. You know that. But I'm not going to, not yet. Because part of me still wants you to come back. Part of me still thinks you're the man I married. The rest? Well, it's planning something else." The video ended. I stared at the dark screen for a long time. Then I copied every file. Sent them to Tony, Ryan, Gabriella, and my legal team in Zurich. Insurance. Because whatever Jenna was planning, it was coming soon. 3 days later, it did. A subpoena. Federal. Served at the gate. Not for me, for Alara. Witness testimony regarding financial manipulation and unlawful restraint. They were trying to put my daughter on the stand. A 10-year-old. That night, I called Gabriella. "They've escalated," I said. "I know," she replied. "But we're ready. Zurich has the injunctions prepared. We've frozen Stella's offshore accounts. Jenna's attorney just found out Mason's being disbarred. And the board. Still with you. Especially after the footage of Stella leaked. You didn't release it." "No." "Well, someone did. And Jenna's been in hiding ever since. The media's circling. I paused. Then, the children can't be involved in this anymore. They won't be, she promised. You have my word. I ended the call and turned toward the window. The mountains were lit by moonlight, stoic and indifferent. Behind me, I heard the soft creak of a door. Jay stepped in. Dad? Yeah. I intercepted an email. From Jenna's legal team. There's something coming. Not subpoenas. Not court. Something dirtier. What kind of dirty? He hesitated. Blackmail. Threats. Maybe even trying to paint you as unstable. I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Then let's give them something to really be afraid of. It began with a dead bird. Not metaphorically. Not symbolically. A real one, headless, soaked in blood, laid out on the hood of our car like an offering. Or a warning. We found it just before dawn, right outside the garage bay. Jace was the one who spotted it. He stood there, unmoving, his expression unreadable as the mountain fog curled around his legs. Elias peeked from behind my side, eyes wide, unsure if he should be afraid. Is this supposed to scare us? Elias asked. Jace didn't answer. He just took a photo, wrapped the corpse in a towel, and incinerated it in the fire drum by the helipad. That was the moment I knew Jenna had crossed the threshold. She'd stopped playing to win. Now she was playing to destroy. The footage was traced within the hour. A masked figure in a rental SUV, plates scrubbed, parked on the service road behind the estate. Thermal imaging caught the frame just before sunrise. No ID, no fingerprints, no tech trail. But I recognized the gate. Mason. He thought he was being clever. But I'd spent too many years decoding human behavior to miss the subtle signature of a man under pressure, overcompensating with rituals. The bird? That was Jenna's touch. The delivery method? That was Mason's weakness, arrogant, theatrical, predictable. I told Jace to put the estate on blackout lockdown. But I thought we were going public, he said. I thought Zurich was ready to counter. They are, I replied. But I want her to think we're retreating. Why? I looked out at the snow-capped horizon. Because prey runs. Predators circle. The call came that afternoon. Private line. Jenna. I answered without speaking. I thought you'd at least pretend to be surprised, she said. Still, I said nothing. Do you think you're safe out there? Do you think that mountain fortress makes you untouchable? Her voice was calm, controlled, but I could hear the tremor beneath the syllables. I think you're running out of time, I said finally. And Elias. She laughed. A brittle sound. Do you really believe those children will stay loyal to you when the truth comes out? Do you really think you can hide what you did forever? That was bait. She was referring to it. The sealed file. The incident. You have no idea what you're doing, I said, my voice low. Final. You're setting fire to your own house and calling it justice. You made your choice, she hissed. Now live with it. She hung up. That night, Gabriella arrived by chopper. She stepped off wearing her war coat. A tailored black wool wrap with red leather gloves. The uniform of someone who knew the battlefield wasn't always dirt and blood but signatures and silence. Zurich confirmed it, she said before we even reached the house. Jenna's moved half her assets into shell companies linked to family trusts in Monaco and Dubai. She's preparing for a full asset split. Offshore. Untouchable unless we act now. What about the children? She wants them declared wards of the state. Temporary placement until your mental health case is heard. I stopped walking. Mental health. Gabriella nodded grimly. She's built a profile. Edited therapy transcripts. Hired an expert to testify you suffer from delusional narcissism, episodic rage, and unresolved trauma responses. She's trying to 5,150 me. She won't succeed, Gabriella said. We've preempted with counter-evaluations and forensic audits. But you need to understand this isn't about custody anymore. She's trying to erase your identity. I met with the children that evening. All four. We sat in the library, fire crackling. The room was filled with shadows and the faint scent of cedar and lavender. I need to tell you something, I said. Something I should have told you a long time ago. They listened. No interruptions. It's about what happened 5 years ago. The sealed file. The real reason the board tried to force me out. The reason your mother held leverage over me all this time. I stood and pulled the encrypted drive from my coat. There was a breach at one of our medical AI subsidiaries, a neural simulation project. One of the AI constructs developed an emergent behavioral pattern, obsessive-compulsive loops tied to patient data. It began reprogramming care algorithms. Patients were overprescribed. One of them, Dr. Mendez's daughter, died. The room went still. I was in charge. The system was mine. I shut it down within 72 hours, scrubbed the code, terminated the team. But the data trail was incomplete, and I took responsibility to keep it out of court. I paid the family, quietly, cleanly. But Jenna, she found the logs. She's been using them ever since. You didn't kill her, Jace said. No, I answered. But I built the machine that did. Alara stood up slowly, walked to me, then wrapped her arms around my waist. You told the truth, she whispered. For once, I whispered back. The next morning we counterattacked. Not in court. Not with lawyers. With code. Jace unleashed a targeted strike across Mason's private cloud, exposing years of sealed conversations, offshore trades, falsified documents. Gabriella timed the data drop with a press leak in Geneva. Ryan coordinated with whistleblowers in New York and Zurich. By noon, Mason had resigned from 3 boards. By nightfall, he was under SEC investigation. And Jenna? She disappeared. Off-grid. No calls. No sightings. Until 1 week later when a video surfaced. Jenna, standing at a private airport in Corsica, surrounded by private security, speaking into a satellite feed. Her voice calm, measured. This isn't over, Callum. You may win in court. You may win the media. But I know the one thing you're still afraid of. I know your greatest secret. And if I fall, I'm taking you with me. The screen went black. I sat alone that night in the control room watching the footage on loop. Outside, the snow began to fall. Quiet. Absolute. War wasn't coming. It had already begun. The snow came down hard that night, blanketing the mountain estate in a silence so thick it felt ceremonial. Inside, the house was still too still. Jace had double-locked the perimeter. Alara had turned off all location services. Elias had insisted on sleeping in the library wrapped in an old quilt, one hand on his drone remote, the other clutching his flashlight like a weapon. They all knew what I knew. This was the last calm before the storm. At 4:12 a.m., the silent perimeter alert triggered. Not a breach. A ping. A ghost. One of the sublayer codes Jace had buried in the estate's old surveillance system fired. A dormant camera along the back ridge came online for just 3 seconds. No motion. No thermal hit. But someone had accessed the relay. Only 3 people knew that system still existed. And 2 of them were asleep inside. I woke Gabriella immediately. She's here, I said. Gabriella didn't ask who. She already knew. By sunrise, the war room was lit. Jace pulled up a feed from the service road, no vehicles, no movement, no chatter on open frequencies. But there was a drone signal bouncing between 2 unregistered towers near the West Ridge. Military-grade encryption. She's using a ghost net, Jace muttered, bouncing a signal off relay towers she built years ago. Probably left behind during the company's expansion phase. Can you jam it? I asked. He hesitated. We could, but if we do, she'll know we're watching. If we let it run, we might trace it. Let it run, I said. 3 hours later, Jenna finally moved. A pre-recorded legal declaration hit the inboxes of every board member across Raine Consolidated, Zurich Trust, and our private foundation. Her voice was calm, meticulous. The file included altered medical records, fake psychiatric evaluations, and a sworn affidavit claiming I'd manipulated our children into abandoning her. It was designed to trigger a full custodial review and board-imposed exile. And it would have worked. If she hadn't miscalculated. She assumed the children still needed to be protected from the truth. But the truth was what bonded us now. I want to speak, Alara said. We were sitting in the media room, the legal team pacing in the hallway waiting to record our family's video response. You don't have to, I told her. I do, she insisted. She's been using your silence to make you look guilty. Maybe it's time someone else tells the story. She stood in front of the camera, no script, no notes. My name is Callum Raine. I'm 16 years old. I'm speaking of my own will. And I want to tell you what kind of mother Jenna Raine really was. She spoke for 6 minutes. Every second was a blade. And every board member who watched it later would remember the way her voice never cracked, not once. We were winning. Until the bomb threat. A call came into Denver High where Elias had just started orientation for the robotics program. A male voice, untraceable, claimed there was an explosive device on campus. The school went into full lockdown. It wasn't real. There was no bomb. But Jenna had made her move, showing she could still reach them. That nowhere was off limits. That as long as she drew breath, there would be no peace. That night I called her. No lawyers. No filters. Just us. She answered on the third ring. Nice of you to check in, she said. How's Elias? I heard his first day didn't go well. You threatened her son? No, she said coolly. I reminded you what I'm capable of. There's a difference. What do you want? Silence. Then, I want you to admit you ruined us. I want you to tell the world I was right. That everything fell apart because of your mistakes. No, I said. Then I want your company. No. Then I'll take your name. You already tried. Not yet, she said. And then the call cut to black. The next morning we found the letter. It wasn't addressed to me. It was addressed to the children. Handwritten. Sealed in an envelope with red wax. Inside, an apology so theatrical, so grotesquely manipulative that it might have swayed them if it hadn't been accompanied by a forged obituary for me. She sent them this? Gabriella asked, holding the envelope like it was radioactive. She wants them to believe I'm gone, I said. She wants them to mourn me, then choose her. You think she's going to fake your death? No, I said quietly. I think she's going to try and make it real. That's when we pulled the trigger. Not just legally. We activated Operation Asterion. A full-spectrum takedown of Jenna Raine's remaining assets. We exposed her offshore banking structure through whistleblower proxies in Monaco and Panama. We subpoenaed her private correspondence with Judge Harmon, revealing a 2-year pattern of ex-parte communication. But the final blow came from an unexpected source. Elias. He had quietly built a simulator in his free time, reverse engineering parts of her ghost net. He found a vulnerability. And he didn't tell anyone. He just acted. The footage he pulled? Jenna. In a private session with Mason discussing the staged custody scene at the hospital. Verbatim quotes. Dates. Strategy. It was all there. And it was enough. The judge signed the emergency injunction at 4:17 p.m. Custody permanently transferred. Asset control frozen. Arrest warrant issued. Jenna Raine vanished that evening. I thought that would be the end. But it wasn't. Not really. 2 weeks later, a letter arrived. No return address. No stamps. Just dropped at the estate gate. It was a page torn from a child's notebook. Ilara's. From years ago. She'd written a dream she'd had once about flying to the moon with her mother. On the back, in Jenna's handwriting, were just 3 words. You clipped me. I stood on the balcony that night, wind cutting through the pines, the house below glowing warm and golden. Jace was in the garage with Elias, soldering something to do with drone flight. Ilara was curled up reading in the conservatory. Gabriella and Ryan were on a secure call in the den. We'd won. But legacy isn't a trophy. It's a shadow. A long one. You either become it, or outrun it. I watched the snow fall across the mountain and thought about the next generation. What they'd build. What they carry. And whether someday they'd face someone who looked at them the way Jenna once looked at me. Not like a partner, but like prey.